Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Spain once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are another relatively new addition to their local beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last few years, and from what I can gather, they do quite a wide variety of different styles, which for me is always a good sign when it comes to encountering new breweries. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at from them today is a style that they are supposed to be very good at. It seems to be one of their kind of regularly produced beers as well, and it is supposed to be really quite nice. The beer guys that I spoke to in Spain spoke very highly of this brewery. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head back to Spain, like I said. We are going to go to the Andalusia region in the south, to the city of Malaga, and we're going to have a look then at my first beer from Attik Brewing. So this particular beer is called Dizzer. It comes in at 6.2% ABV, and this one is a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, these guys are actually a gypsy brewery, but they're based primarily in Malaga, and they brew their beers all over the country from what I can gather. But the people that I spoke to in the different beer bars in Malaga spoke really highly of these guys and told me that I needed to review one of their beers, so here we are. But yeah, really looking forward to this one. It's always nice to introduce new breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews, especially when they come from different parts of the world that I've only just started exploring. But yeah, the Dizzer Hazy IPA at 6.2% ABV from Attik Brewing, a gypsy brewery based in Malaga in Andalusia in the south of Spain. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Attik Brewing. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned to you, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Spanish playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regular at the moment, and hopefully I can keep adding on to that regularly in the future, because I have enjoyed the Spanish beers that I've tried thus far. Wee bit hard to get here in Hong Kong though, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Attik Brewing one for the first time then. So yeah, as I've mentioned to you already, Attik Brewing are a gypsy brewery based in Malaga in the Andalusia region in the south of Spain, and the company was founded back in 2018 by lifelong friends Umid Naresh Milwane and Jaime Bru Munoz. So Jaime is from Spain, while Umid is Spanish but has Indian roots, hence why his name's a little bit unusual, I guess we could say. But both of these guys are actually Andalusian locals, with Umid living in Torremolinos and Jaime residing in Benalmádena, and they've been friends since primary school. So apparently one weekend, Jaime called Umid and Juan, another childhood friend, to suggest that they start brewing beer because he'd been inspired by this documentary that he'd been watching on TV. But both Umid and Juan jumped at the idea, and they went over and started brewing together, although Juan would actually leave the homebrewing activities quite early on. So Jaime went on to study audiovisual production in Malaga, while Umid is a biochemical engineer by trade, and they say that their contrasting educational backgrounds really contributed to their unique approach to brewing. And the name Attik actually comes from their homebrewing days, where the three friends were making their first beers in the attic of Jaime's house. But after going their separate ways after finishing school, they reconnected through craft beer and would spend many of their weekends brewing, drinking and grilling basically. And these days Umid runs the business side of the company, while Jaime focuses on the production and branding side of things. But the first Attik beer was launched in a collaboration with a bar in Malaga called El Rincón del Cervecero. You might have seen we reviewed one of their beers on the channel a few videos ago, actually. But this was a hazy IPA named Big Elephant, and it was a really big success. All the people at El Rincón del Cervecero really liked it, and it was the positive reception they got from this beer that prompted them to take their brewing project a little bit more seriously. Now, as we mentioned earlier, these guys operate as a gypsy, nomad, whatever you want to call it, brewery, and they're currently working with 3 different breweries across Spain, and they basically chose their partners on the basis of the styles of beer that they wanted to create. So apparently they brew their hazy IPAs at Costeo Beer Factory in the Costeo region in the east of Spain, so that's where this one was brewed. But the lagers and West Coast IPAs are brewed at Cerveza San Frutos in Segovia, which is in the centre of the country, and then the Imperial Stouts are brewed at Cluster Beer Works in Barcelona, which is of course in Catalonia in the northeast of Spain. But this collaborative approach, they say, allows them to learn more about brewing these different styles and also to get the optimal results for their fans. So I guess these are 3 more Spanish breweries that I will need to check out at some stage. But apparently the project was completely funded by the personal savings of Umid and Jaime, and they invested all their resources into brewing, and the profits that they make from the brewery go back into the business, and I'm guessing at some stage they will eventually invest in their own facility. But these days they're producing around 40,000 litres of beer annually. Although they don't have their own tap room, they are well known in the Andalusia region. They sell their beers to 12 different bars, from what I understand, and you'll get them both on tap and in cans. But as of the time of filming, which is November 2025, these guys have released about 115 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Attik Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Untappd page as well to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, we can breathe. That is the end of the history section of this video then, and a big thank you on that note to Amanda, who did the contact with this brewery and translated all the Spanish into English for me, and also to Umid from the brewery, who was apparently great with her in terms of getting back to her and actually giving her all that information. So big ups to both Amanda and Umid for helping make this video possible. But yeah, let's focus now on the beer itself. I have to say I really like the artwork of this one. It's kind of reminds me of all my physics days when I was studying physics. But yeah, it kind of looks like the inside of a tokamak as well, but just very, very colourful. But anyway, really like the artwork on this one. As you can see, it's a little bit trippy. They've got a nice black can with this, which really works with it too. And on the back of the can, you can see Attik Brewing. So yeah, I actually asked Amanda before filming this video, is that how you spell like Attic in Spain? Apparently in Spanish it is Attico. Which yeah would not be spelled like that, but yeah, we weren't sure exactly where the spelling of Attic comes from. But as we said, this refers to the 3 friends brewing the beers in Jaime's attic in the early days. 6.2% New England Hazy IPA, this one. It has Idaho 7 and Mosaic in the cryo oil form, and also Talus in there as well, and it's also got a verdant yeast. So we know all 3 of these hops quite well. All 3 of them are American hops. Idaho 7's about 14% alpha acid. It's going to give you a lot of juicy mango and kind of pineapple and apricot-y sort of notes as well, like very soft tropical juicy notes. Mosaic, 14% alpha acid, again big tangerine orangey notes with a little bit of distinctive earthiness as well. And Talus, a daughter hop of Sabro, actually gives you this very kind of bright pink grapefruit and sort of coconutty character. I think that one's slightly higher, it's 16% alpha acid. As I say, all 3 are American, and of course verdant, referring to the English New England Hazy IPA brewery, who do some very, very good stuff. But yeah, this one seems to have been produced quite a few times. There's also a double Dizzer as well, from what I understand, so maybe we can try that one at some point in the future. But yeah, this one should be quite nice. We're drinking this one actually at about 5 months old, I'll point that out. No, 6 months old actually, I think it says April this one was canned, so yeah, it took us a wee while to get round to reviewing this one, but I'm sure it will still be in pretty good condition. But we'll keep that in mind when we're looking at it. But there we go. Anyway, we've got it. Oh, just pull my hair off the cam there. But yeah, we'll get this guy out into the glass and see what we have. There we are. So that looks pretty nice. We've got maybe about 60% of the beer out and into the glass at the moment, and that head is holding up quite nicely on this one. So before it disappears, with what we've poured, we've got about a half finger of a frothy, I would say almost kind of soapy bubbly perfect white head there. I'll just bring that up to the camera and let you have a little look at that. But yeah, you can see it, medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there, and a few more kind of soapy ones the further up you go. But that head is fading away quite quickly to be a thinner, kind of more foamy layer, and then you've got that soapy ring just around the edge of the glass there. But all in all, it looks pretty nice, this one. In terms of colour, I would describe it as being like a very bright yellow mango juice. I always like comparing the New England hazy IPAs to different fruit juices, because that really is just what they remind me of. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the IPA style umbrella, if we can call it that. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one. In terms of the level of haze in this beer, it's certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of hazy IPAs that I've come across. So remember, the level of haze in these New England IPAs is down to primarily the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. And you know, the wheat content and the oak content really is what distinguishes the hazy IPAs from the West Coast IPAs, which rely primarily on barley malt in their malt base. But yeah, this one, as I say, not the soupiest and gloopiest of hazy IPAs that I've come across. Maybe there'll be a wee bit of sedimentation in this one, of course, because it has been sitting in the fridge for a wee while, so we'll see later on. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation. You can just see a few bubbles kind of jumping up and breaking the surface there. But all in all, it looks pretty much as you would expect of a hazy IPA. There's nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. Very, very curious about this. Oh, right, okay. I'm going to say straight away, this one, it's not got the most pungent of aromas, actually. It's quite mild-mannered in a sense. We'll just need to see. Maybe I need to put a little bit more of it in the glass. But yeah, it is actually pretty mild-mannered. But when you let it kind of, as I say, when you let it settle after sugaring it up, you can get more and more of the things out of it, actually. So maybe that's what we need to do. Sugar it and just let it settle a wee bit. And that seems to work. So yeah, it is starting to show me a little bit more now. But yeah, first impression of this one, it comes across as if it's quite an oaty leaning New England IPA. And that would explain maybe why it's not the most hazy, because usually it's the wheat that gives you a lot of the haziness. The oats will contribute, but not quite as much as the wheat, in my experience. But yeah, this one, it comes across as if it's a little bit more oaty leaning. You can smell that right away. So for me, there's 6 different components to think about when it comes to these kind of hazy IPAs. When it comes to considering the aroma and the flavours. So you've got the farmhousey yeasty type character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a little bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs, because the style did of course start off as the farmhouse IPA, and as it's evolved elsewhere, the focus has been more on wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. So for me, this one, you can definitely get a bit of the wheat, you can definitely get the barley, but I feel this one is a little bit more kind of oaty leaning. It's not overly sweet either, we would say. But yeah, aroma-wise, oaty is the way to go with this one, I think. But yeah, so in terms of the malt base then, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a wee touch of woodiness, of course, some crackery notes. I do get a little bit of a brown bready, kind of grainy underlying to this beer, which is quite nice. So yeah, a little bit of a brown bready, grainy underlying. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, wee bit of wood, wee bit of cracker, brown bready notes. Lots of fluffy, fresh white bready character out of this one though. And you can tell I think it's German malt that's been used primarily in this one. It smells really, really nice. I don't know if the Spanish produce much of their own malts, actually, or whether most of it will be imported from elsewhere. I mean, they do have quite a lot of good farmland, particularly in the north of Spain, from what I've seen. But yeah, lots of fluffy fresh white bread in there. You can smell a more dense wheaty white bread in this one, but of course a lot of the oaty character really pushes its way out of this one. And the oaty side of these beers is always quite interesting because when it comes to New England IPAs, you can use the oaty character in these beers as a rough indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the fresher the beer is, the creamier the oats smell and taste, the older the beer is, the drier the oats smell and taste. So yeah, the oaty character in this one, you can tell, it has got a bit of creaminess to it, but you can start to smell the sort of dryness coming out of the oats there. On top of that, there's absolutely a little bit of, yeah, on top of that, there's definitely a little bit of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type character coming out of the beer, which I have to say I really do quite enjoy. So there is just a little touch of sweetness with this one, and you do get some kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, all in all, the malty character in this beer is pretty much what you would expect, in fact. Oh yeah, it's good, it's good. Yeah, for me, I think that covers the malty side of things. Now, the yeasty side of the beer is of course quite familiar because we know the verdant yeasts pretty well. At the back of the nose then, there's a wee bit of like brown bready character. So yeah, that fluffy kind of brown bready character is in the yeast, but a lot of white bready notes, and yeah, like a very fresh, yeah, it's got a very, very fresh sort of white bready character to it for sure, which I like. But the yeasty character just gives you that wee bit of dryness in there. I do wonder, just from smelling this, maybe there's a little touch of Pilsner malt or something like that coming out of this beer, because there's something just quite familiar about that side of it as well. Yeah, all in all, the way that goes together is pretty nice in this one. Yeah, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of this beer then. Yeah, quite oaty leaning, but you know, with a wee bit of analysis you can get all of it. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then to round off our aroma. So as I've told you in many IPA reviews before, there are three ways you can hop an IPA. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour or so of your wort boil. That gives you the vast majority of your bitterness and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour or so of your wort boil. Wee bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and a very bright green component. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after your wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma. And again, that gives you a very kind of bright green component, of course. So West Coast IPAs tend to use all three types, which is why they're deeper, danker, and more oily. Whereas New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more kind of juicy in a sense, actually. So that's worth bearing in mind. That's definitely worth bearing in mind with this one, because you can smell that, especially when you've got the cryo in here, because the cryo oils, they really smoothen out your green component, and that's definitely going on. So let's have a look at the green component of this one first. So for me, there's definitely a little bit of earthiness in there, which is going to be the mosaic, but you get that lovely smooth floral aromaticity and fresh, kind of freshly cut grassy kind of character coming out of it as well. So yeah, absolutely, that's in there, and yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, lovely kind of floral aromaticity, bright grassiness out of it, and yeah, that little touch of earthiness as well. Yeah. The way that all of that goes together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, green component on this one, it is smoother of course because of the cryo oils, but you've got that nice bright floral aromaticity out of it as well, which is kind of what you want. I can also smell a wee bit of a coconutty character to it as well, which is going to be the talus. But let's focus on the fruity side of things then. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer, the more pungent it gets actually, the more that you smell of the beer. There's that really kind of sharp pink grapefruity note just jumping out now from the talus, of course. But yeah, behind that I absolutely get the big juicy ripe mangoes, like the apricot, the pineapple and stuff from the Idaho 7. But yeah, beyond that, there's a little bit of there's a little bit of kind of that. You do get quite a little bit of the orangey note. I think the more you smell this one, the more kind of tangerine and orangey it becomes. So yeah, the way that all goes together in this one, I think, is really very, very nice, and that gets a big thumbs up from me as well. So yeah, the pungent pink grapefruity sort of thing, it kind of sits in the top of the nose at the front, which I'm a wee bit sort of surprised about. But yeah, the way that all goes together is quite interesting in this one. It's quite a quirky aroma that I'm getting out of this, and it's not like a lot of the other hazies that I've had recently. So yeah, as I always say, just take a little bit of time to oh, we've got a wee touch of sediment there. You can see it kind of floating about, I guess. We'll just let that settle down. Maybe should have been a bit more careful with the pour there, but yeah, anyway, it's all natural. It will be good. We'll just let that settle down a wee bit. But yeah, probably just had it in the fridge a wee touch too long. You guys can see it there in the bottom of the glass. There's just a little bit of that. But yeah, anyway, let's have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this beer because the aroma is quite interesting. More and more Skittlesy type character coming out of it, the more that I smell of it too. So yeah, this one is the Dizzer, a hazy IPA. It's 6.2% ABV from Attik Brewing, a gypsy brewery based in Malaga in the Andalusia region in the south of Spain. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, salut. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. And I will say, this one, it is a wee bit drier and a wee bit more oaty than I think it would have been when it was absolutely fresh, but I think it's kind of stood up. As I say, this one's about 6 months old. I think it's stood up to the time pretty well, to be honest with you. This one goes together really quite nicely. So I'm going to say big thumbs up to Attik Brewing for this one. They've done a solid job with it. And yeah, my first impression of it being a more oaty leaning New England IPA was certainly right. You can definitely get that out of this beer. So yeah, the way this goes together is nice. This, again, it would have been even better if we could have reviewed this one a little bit earlier, but it's done pretty damn well, I have to say. I think I'll need to try some of these fresh at source the next time I make it to Malaga or Andalusia. But yeah, this is good. So first impression of it is really smooth, oaty leaning, quite juicy, but juicy New England IPA, but it does have that wee bit of dryness to it just because of the age, I think, of it. But I do wonder as well if there's maybe a little touch of Pilsner malt on this one, because there's a wee bit of crispness in the back of the palate there, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, let's do as we always do then, and we'll break the beer down and describe the flavour for you a bit more in depth. So we'll start with the middle third of the palate in this one. So yeah, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. And you can feel as you go a little bit further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness just coming out of the beer. I always get that. I think it must just be my palate, but yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there, wee bit of woodiness. Then there's a sort of smattering of like Jacob's cream cracker. Those typical base layers you get in these beers are absolutely there. The next layer up, you can feel there's a slightly more grainy kind of brown bready character coming out of the beer. So the way that goes together is quite interesting too, because you do get a wee bit of graininess and crispness and stuff into the aftertaste with this beer, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I do like that about this one, I have to say. On the, how do we say, yeah, on top of that kind of wholemeal brown bready layer then, you do get the fluffier white bready layer from the barley malt in this one. And the bready character in there, it's quite nice, it's quite fluffy and fresh and kind of bright, yeah, quite fluffy and fresh, but it does have a wee bit of sweetness to it and a little touch of dryness as well. Yeah, so the way that goes together in this one is pretty nice. A good mix of things. So yeah, the way that goes together is nice as well. I do find that the malty base in this one does sweeten up a wee bit the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, the next layer up from the barley malt white bread is definitely the more dense, wheaty, oaty white bread, so the wheaty white bread rather. So yeah, you feel this more dense, wheaty white bready layer there. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So you can feel that the wheaty character is a little bit more bitey further back on the palate, but yeah, as you move further forward, it does get a little bit sort of smoother, if you like. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is pretty nice in this one. But yeah, I think on top of that kind of wheaty white bread layer, I wonder if there's a wee bit of Pilsner malt or something, because there's this real crisp dryness. It has a little bit of zip to it further back on that middle third of your palate. So yeah, I do wonder, a wee bit of Pilsner malt in there maybe. But sitting on top of that, in the middle of your palate, you've got that kind of circle, oval sort of shape where you get the kind of brown sugary side of things coming out of the beer. So in the dead centre of your palate, it feels like a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original type quality, and of course that's the boozy part of the beer. This one being only 6.2% though, that effect is not overly pronounced, but it's definitely there. So yeah, it is definitely there. And you've got, how would we say, if you move a little bit further out from that, you get a wee bit more of a kind of, there's a slightly fudgy note to it, but then yeah, it's surrounded by a bit more of a McVitie's digestive biscuity note. So yeah, that little circle in the middle of your palate, Werther's Original, fudgy, McVitie's digestive biscuit, and that sits on top of the kind of oaty layer of the beer. So down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that the oats are quite nice and creamy, but then yeah, as you move further out toward the edges of your palate there, the oaty layer that sits on top of that wheaty white bread is definitely kind of more dry, actually. And again, you can feel that wee bit of Pilsner malty kind of zip. Yeah, you can feel that sort of Pilsner malty zip just at the back of your palate, just at the back of that middle third of your tongue there. So I think we've covered that middle third of your palate quite in depth there. So let's go on then to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate and middle third of your palate will have quite similar flavours, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build-up in there, the brown bread in the base, the fluffy white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bready character on top, then a wee touch of what I suspect is Pilsner malty bitiness in there. And then yeah, the back third of your palate, the bread crusty character is a little bit drier. On top of that, the Jacob's cream crackery notes are kind of there as well. And then yeah, you've got the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and more dry. Same about the barley malt white bready layer that sits above that. Then yeah, the wheaty white bready character sits on top there, and it's got a wee bit more of a, yeah, it's got a little bit more of a, how would we say, a dense, yeah, it's got a wee bit of a more dense character to it as well, but yeah, a wee bit more bitey. Then yeah, I feel a little bit of Pilsner malty crispness and bitiness just creeping over the top of that. But I'm wondering, maybe that's, is it maybe maybe something from the yeast that's doing that? Yeah, could be. But yeah, the yeasty character in this one, as we always say, the yeasty character sits on top of the back third of your palate, I would say. So yeah, for me, on top of the back of those malty characters on that back third of your palate, at its core, you can feel that the yeasty character is a little bit more, yeah, it's a little bit more kind of like a dense, sweet, brown bready character. Then as you move further out from it, it's got a little bit more of a kind of fluffier white bready note. And then yeah, the very edge of it is a little bit more, yeah, the very edge of it is a little bit more of a, how would we say, like a sort of crackery, farmhousey kind of bread, but it does have a wee bit of that almost Pilsner malty type crispness to it as well, the more that I think about it. So yeah, I wonder, maybe it is something from the yeast that's given the beer just that little bit of dryness there. But yeah, core of like sweeter brown bread, fluffier white bread, and a kind of drier Pilsner malty crispness around the edge of that. Maybe a wee bit of toasty bread crust or something too. But yeah, that yeasty character lingers there and sits into the aftertaste, and definitely we can say the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that that goes together in this one, I think, is pretty interesting. So yeah, that is your that's the malty and yeasty side of this beer. Then let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So as I said earlier on, 2 of the hops in this beer are cryo, so your green component is actually pretty smooth. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, it's a little bit more kind of woody, if you like, so a wee bit earthy, wee bit woody. Then yeah, as you come further forward, I do get a little touch of pine resin underneath, which is quite interesting. But yeah, as you reach the front corners of your palate, there's a little bit more floral aromaticity, and round the front curve of your tongue, you can feel that it's a little bit more kind of grassy, and there's a wee touch of zestiness to that as well, which comes out. So you can feel a wee bit of the pellet there, giving you that wee bit more kind of zip on the green component. But yeah, I think that covers it in all honesty. So let's go to the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. Brown bread in the base, the kind of white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bready character on top. Then you've got the same layers forming the base of that front third of your palate. Fresh white bready bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, wholemeal brown bread, barley malt white bread, the smoother wheaty note, and a wee bit of that really smooth oaty creaminess just creeping forward. Then on top of that, you've got that lovely oily bubble where the juicy fruity characters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice in this one. So yeah, let's see how that goes. Yeah. So, fruity side of this beer is quite interesting, to be honest. As I say, there's kind of like almost on top of that oaty layer, you do just get a wee bit of coconutty kind of character. So yeah, the coconutty side of this one is the coconutty side of this one's quite interesting. And that lingers under all the other fruity characters. But yeah, if you go further back to the back of that kind of oily bubble that I was talking about, you do get quite a strong kind of grapefruity note coming out of beer, and I think that's the talus that's going to give you that. It doesn't feel like quite as dark almost as you're going to get from, say, Chinook or something like that. But yeah, it does feel a wee bit kind of brighter and slightly more juicy in a sense. So yeah, how would we say, the fruity side of the grapefruit just kind of lingers there, and then as you come further forward, you absolutely get a little bit more. There's a kind of juicy mango, which is going to be your Idaho 7. Then as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a wee bit of apricot underneath and a bit of pineapple on top. And then yeah, as you move further forward into the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's all about the tangerine orange from the Mosaic. So yeah, the kind of the talus is kind of sitting underneath. You've got that strong grapefruity character from it at the back as well. Then the back half, other than that, it's the Idaho 7 with the softer tropical notes, then the Mosaic with the more tangerine orange. But that grapefruity note does kind of linger into the aftertaste a wee bit, but along with the orangey zestiness, the tangerine zestiness comes out of this one into the aftertaste too. So yeah. Yeah, it's a nice IPA, this one. As I say, I would be curious to have it absolutely fresh and just see what the difference would be, because yeah, there's quite a wee bit of like oaty dryness coming out of it, but at this point in time it's still pretty damn solid actually, so absolutely worth trying should you get the chance to, even if it is 6 months old, so it's in good shape. So yeah, be curious to try this one fresh, and we can do that more easily now that we've got brewery notes and things. But yeah, anyway, I like this one. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink more from these guys. So let's go on and have a wee look at the mouthfeel of this one just to round off. So for me, this beer, I'd say that it's mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a lovely kind of cleanliness to it, but at the same time, it does have a wee bit of an oily slickness. And as I said, this one's quite an oaty leaning New England IPA, so it's kind of got this cleanliness to it, but at the same time it's got a wee bit of like smoothness, silkiness, which I find quite interesting. In terms of the IBUs in this beer, I'm finding that the bitterness is building in this one the further on that we go with it, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is maybe 40 or 50 IBUs, and usually the standard for this style is about 30, so that's kind of an interesting point about this one. The malty base is a wee bit drier underneath, smooth in the middle, and kind of creamier and slightly sweet on top, and then yeah, you've got that lovely juicy fruity character coming out of this one as well, which I think is really quite nice. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. I think this goes together really pretty well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think this has been a really interesting one to try, and definitely cool to introduce another Andalusian Spanish brewery to you here on the channel as well. And this is one that I will keep an eye out for going forward, as well as the breweries that these guys gypsy brew at too. Those could be quite interesting to check out. But yeah, this one was the Dizzer, a hazy IPA at 6.2% ABV from Attik Brewing in a gypsy brewery based in Malaga in Andalusia in the south of Spain. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Attik Brewing as well. This one's definitely worth checking out if you like a nice kind of oaty and slightly more bitter New England IPA accent. It's been a really interesting one to try this, and it's made me think a wee bit. But yeah, until the next time, check out my social media, check out Attik Brewing's social media, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now, sláinte, skål, cheers, and salut.